Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this year's edition of Mexico's Automotive Industry Summit, organized by Mexico Now. We are very happy to have been invited again this year, and be it by this way, which is the way things happen today in the industry and in business. Thank you for everyone for sharing with us this moment and start talking about the Mexican market and the situation we have today. For this, I have three guests here with me with a lot of expertise in this area. My first panelist is Claudia Farias. She is the head of the Office of National Accounts in the Bank of Mexico. Welcome, Claudia. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Thomas. Good morning, everyone.
Then we have Guillermo Rosales, who is the General Director of the Mexican Association of Automotive Dealers or Automotive Distributors. He has been a permanent guest in these events and of course is one of the main actors in this field and in the industry. Good morning to you, Guillermo.
Good morning, Thomas. Good morning.
Thank you. And Gerardo Gomez, who is the country manager Mexico and senior director of J.D. Power and Associates. Of course, J.D. Power is one of the main consulting and investigation companies in this field. And of course, his contribution and his presence for us is very important today. Hello, Gerardo.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me to Mexico Now. Hello, Thomas.
Thank you. So let's just start and jump into the issue. Just to introduce the issue, not get lost in the figures of the past, just take a brief look at the situation this year, 2020, which you see the red bars and you see how the industry broke down in April and has been recovering since, not with the speed we would like to see. And now in November, we are still 23% below last year in terms of sales in Mexico, which makes us a total of 844,000 vehicles in 11 months, which is 29% cumulative below last year. This figure is, as we're going to see, very similar to that other countries are showing right now in this situation. And interesting to see is if we compare the current crisis with the 2009 crisis. Very different crisis, very different situation, but coincidentally or not, sales fell 28% in 2009. We are expecting a similar figure this year, 2020, in Mexico. Of course, the absolute figures are a little bit different, but the impact seems to be very similar. And another issue to note, and we're going to talk about this in the next couple of minutes, is when are we going to be back to normal? Last year, in the last crisis, it took us 3 years to get back to the 1 million cars that the industry had been selling for several years up to then. So this is an additional data. The other data we're going to look at is Mexico situations per October. In this case, 30% below last year. Very similar to European Union. Very similar to Brazil. Very different from China. We all know that China has been coming back much more quickly than other countries. And fortunately for the factories in Mexico, also different in the USA. US is only, quote unquote, 17% below last year, which of course helps the Mexican factories to keep up their production in this situation. So having said this, let's jump right into the first question that of course comes to mind is, where are we going from here? Yeah? How long is it going to take to get back to normal? if that's possible in any case, what is going to happen in Mexico too in 2021, in 2022, and maybe try to look up to 2025. Maybe Claudia, you could give us the first impression. Please be as brief as possible, so to give everybody the chance to state his opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Thomas. Well, we have seen how this pandemic situation has made the automotive sales drop off. It has been a scenario full of challenges, and I know that challenge word has been the most pronounced word in this pandemic situation. And I think we can see this in a microeconomic position and a macroeconomic. I'm going to focus on the microeconomic level. This pandemic has left some lessons for all of us in the both in the side of the supply and the demand. In the supply side, we can see how the car dealers, the agencies, has learned to be creative, to sell a new way of sell cars. We have seen how they used to do the traditional way. Well, sorry, they used to sell cars online, but in a very small proportion. Now it's the main proportion that they are selling cars. They have learned to approach the consumer, and they have successfully recovery from the last lockdown in April and May. And yeah, I think it's responding positively, and we hope it continue being in the future. In the demand side, sorry, we have seen how the consumers have learned to buy cars. We, the Mexicans, are very traditional at the moment of buying a car. We used to go to the agency and with the family and select a car. Now they have to do in a new way of buying a car. So it's a new form to acquire a car, in which we need a car because of the pandemic situation makes a risk of contagion at the public transport. So we have seen that the Mexicans need a car. And I think in the future, we are going to see this with more strength. And the recovery, of course, is going to last 2 or 3 years more. It has been very difficult to do forecasts in these situations, very complex. And but I think in the same way at the past is going to last 3, maybe 4 years more to reach the level of the past in sales. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Now, Guillermo, what are you hearing from your associates, and what is your message in terms of how to expect the development of the Mexican market in the next couple of years?
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you very much for Mexico Now, to the opportunity to be with you this morning. 2020 pandemic has left worldwide economy severely impacted in terms of income and employment. Several economic activities are struggling to survive, and major part of economic sectors have been negatively impacted. Our country is not an exception. Unfortunately, we have already faced negative economic performance before the arrival of COVID-19, which deepened the difficulties in terms of economic perspective. Current GDP data showed negative performance in 2019, a decrease of 0.1% in annual comparison. this being a pre-COVID status. So with this scenario of economic weakening, the expectation after the impact of economic pandemic will lead up to a 9 annual decrease of GDP to this year, meaning a loss of almost 850,000 jobs, which point out a difficult perspective for the next years, not only to recover the weakened levels of 2019, but those of 2018. This context let us have a cautious outlook for automotive market for the year to come. In terms of domestic market, as employment and income had been hardly, and also because of the uncertainty about the future number on infections confirmed in our country, as the second wave has reached us and does not seem to be controlled. We think Mexican market will face a slow recovery, since we have faced 4 years of continuous decrease since 2017 to this year, 2020. Actually, we will in 2020 with a 40 loss from the record figures registered in 2016. We are expecting to recover 2019 levels in 2023, more or less, maybe 2024. Next year, we estimate an average advance of 12% in domestic market, depending, of course, on economic previsions of GDP and financing toward 1,050,000 units. Some relevant elements that will help to recover domestic market are the financing support, incentive efforts for OEMs and dealers, and the deepening of digital strategies to boost sales. Also, we have good prospect for used vehicle sales in dealerships and an opportunity in automotive maintenance services. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Guillermo. Now to Gerardo. Gerardo, what does your company see in terms of the market being able to recover, especially comparing what's happening in Mexico to other parts of?
Thank you, Thomas. In general, what we are seeing is very aligned with what Claudia and Guillermo was telling us. Let me share with you a quick slide here to show you guys the perspective that we have right now. So basically, as you mentioned, and how we compare against the world, this is the forecast, and I'm not going to stop I'm going to pass this very quick in order just to you have a quick overview of what we are seeing. Globally, we are looking after 75 million, right? So this means 17% below what we did last year. And if we take a quick look in Mexico, we are, unfortunately, we are looking at below 1 million. That's a key threshold that we are always pursuing. And as Guillermo mentioned, we are looking the recovery to the 2019 levels about around 2023, 2024. So that's key. But the thing here is that we are below 25% against the world performance. So it's key for us just to keep on pushing. On the other hand, this is when we compare against different countries, as we mentioned, this is our performance, as Guillermo was mentioning, our performance is going down every year. This is the percentage that we performed versus the previous year, right? So we are going down. This is Mexico, the dark gray, and we are going down every year. And this year, of course, all the countries that we are measuring this table are going down. But if you will see in the past, Brazil are recovering basically, and see that this year is not an exception, it's hitting everywhere. But see the recuperation comparing to what we are 25% is, we're going to recover 9, and then 11 the next year, and then 10. So we are going to take us 3 years to recover to the same levels to be break even, let's say. But see, Brazil is going to have a bigger jump than us next year. But also, that's the key thing that we are looking is that recovery that is going to become stable. And if you see from 2022 and beyond, we are looking at a percentage that is higher than any other part of the country that we are looking in the region, and key competitors are that. So as Claudia mentioned, this is a challenge for the industry, but the key thing here is that we saw a big opportunity as well to rethink that how we are doing the business and how we can just perform in a better way with the new challenges that on opportunities that are presenting our new consumers.
Yeah, thank you, Gerardo. I think this makes us very clear where the challenges are. And you just mentioned the consumer in Mexico. Do you have any idea or any hint how Mexican consumer preferences in terms of what kind of cars they buy, what kind of cars are looking for, what kind of services is going to impact or has been impacting and is going to impact the Mexican market?
Sure. Let me go again and share a quick. One thing that we have been pushed at everybody is understanding here is that we had a big this has been pushing a lot the dealers to adopt digital retail tools. So we have to just, everybody was talking that we are very digital, but what this pushes really fast is that all dealers, as Claudia mentioned, has to be on top of this part. And in the other hand, all the platforms are just developing a lot of new releases, new features every time, and the consumers are trying now online full, right? Because in the past they say, okay, I have the dealer, I go there, but now we need just to be on top of this all the time. As you know, when we find some customers here, when we ask them about what they are thinking and what they're expecting, the 62% of them are just more likely to complete all from starting to finish all the process online. So now they are more willing that they have to be back in January, right? So all we have to be adapted to that. One other key thing here, as you will see here, is this has accelerated all the online shopping tools, and we were supposed to be digital since 10, 20 years ago, right? But now is that really this situation is pushing us to be digital from the start to the end, and this is the key thing that we need just to continue paying attention on the consumer habits, right? On what they are looking for. Be connected. Of course, right now this image is not the right one because this is very well connected. But just imagine this image with everybody just spread out with the shopping by their phones.
Thank you, Gerardo. We have a little bit of connection troubles here, but let's try to get on with this. Now, Guillermo, your main partners are the big automotive producers, what we call the OEMs. Do you think the OEMs are responding adequately to the Mexican market requirement?
During these hard times of pandemic, automotive industry has reacted in terms of protecting people inside, workers and outside consumers by adopting the regulations established by authorities and implementing new way to stay in touch with customers by digital means mainly. The demand during this year, 2020, has been attended respecting safety rules and trying to respond adequately to market requirements. Also, there has been several programs mainly offered by financial institutions which support automotive credit customers during the worst months of the pandemic. So they can defer payments and credit restructuring in order to help them to avoid non-payment status. I think that in the future, we need OEMs support the Mexican market with strong, more and good. and not only consider it as a complementary site, a complementary market. It's common that the dealer does not have enough inventory of products with high demand and has a high financial cost for inventory of products that the customer does not want. This may be to the change, Thomas.
Thank you, Guillermo. Now, of course, we are in the middle of a very difficult situation that is kind of taking priority above everything else. But the industry in Mexico has been facing other challenges which are not going to go away. And when the pandemic recedes, these challenges are coming back. Could you talk a little bit about that, Claudia?
Yes, thanks, Thomas. Can we see, please, the first slide? Nowadays, apart from the current pandemic situation, the Mexican industry faces a combination of factors that have slowed down their development of the car sales, like growth, unemployment, and more recently, an increase in relative prices. As we can see in the first figure, the automotive sales move very closely to the economy. They are very attached. Here we can see how it's the IGAE. We are linked to the IGAE, the global indicator of economic activity. And we see how they move very closely. In the future, if you check the quarterly report of the Bank of Mexico, we expect to slow down this year around 9%. The next year, we expect to grow around 3%, and in the 22, around 2%. This gave us an idea of how the car sales is going to move in the next years. It's going to be positive, but very slow. And in the central and right figures, we can see how their negative relationship exists between the car sales with the unemployment and the prices. And of course, these are very structural factors that we cannot change overnight. We have to wait in the future to develop these things. But I think it can overcome in the 3 or 4 more years. These are the other factors that are affecting the car sales, not only the pandemic, but more structural factors that only with the time we can overcome. And let's see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Now, Guillermo, back to you. Apart from these economic influences and impacts, there have been several issues that have to do with government regulation, with government actions in the past that might be still be impacting the industry. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Thank you, Thomas. Several problems have been derived from a pandemic, as slowness to return to administrative activities in the government offices. For example, vehicle plates in some states of Mexico, which has represent serious problems for dealers. Also, we are still struggling with imported used cars introduced to our country, mainly from USA, which represent 13 of total new vehicle sales during 2020, in the period January to October. This is a problem that impacts to whole country, but that is mainly focused in northern states. Currently, we have faced several attempts by state authorities to officially register scrap vehicles. On the other hand, the regulatory agenda of the federal government is not sufficiently adapted to the requirements of the industry, and that puts our economic growth at risk without necessarily achieving the authorities' objectives of offering safer and more efficient vehicles to the Mexican people. It's a big problem in the last 2 years, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Guillermo. Now, before we continue with the session, we have a brief message from the organizer. Now, let's talk a little bit about some other factors that might be influencing or appearing or participating in the Mexican market in the next couple of years. Claudia, another important factor, fundamental factor in the business of selling cars is auto loans, leasing, schemes and these kinds of things. In the last 10 years, auto financing has become much more and more important, but it's still not at the level that we see in other countries. Is there anything that can be done to enhance financing in Mexico?
As you mentioned, Thomas, the automotive financing has played a key role in supporting sales over the past year. And it's going to continue being in this way. As we have seen in the last months, there has been an increase in the new cars finance and against the not financed cars. They have slowed the proportion of car sales. We can see in the first figure. And something very interesting here that we can see in the first graph is that the semi-used cars is growing to the financing for semi-used cars is growing. What this tells us is that the Mexican consumer needs a car, and it's because of the risk, as mentioned before, the Mexican consumer needs a car and have to move from the they don't have trust in the public transportation, so they go to look for a car even if it's financed. And we can see how the payment terms have increased. Now we see pay terms and schedules of 5 years. The 80% of the finance cars are in payment terms of 5, 4, 3, or even 6 years. And it is going to continue be supporting the car sales. We can see in the third graph how the interest rate and sales it's not, they don't move really very closely. Well, they don't have to move closely, but the financing is not really responding to the interest rate. the financing is very sensitive is to the market conditions. And we hope that in the future, they respond to the decrease in the interest rate. That's how we can enhance the financing in the future. Among other conditions, macroeconomic conditions had to be stable in order to continue the financing growing, like the macroeconomic stability, inflation, and all these things. So yes, it's very important, the financing, and the way we can enhance is to have a stable economy with macroeconomic factors stable. Maybe in the future we can achieve slowly but positive. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Claudia. Now back to you, Guillermo, and the Mexican situation of the Mexican car dealers. I can only imagine how hard it is for car dealers who have been passed several months of selling almost nothing. They have the installations closed now, slowly coming back. What challenges do they face in general, also in financial terms? What is being done for them? What can they do by themselves to improve the situation, including, of course, adopting new technologies like Gerardo mentioned? Please talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that is one of the key pillars, keystones for the Mexican market.
Nowadays, one of the biggest challenges is to adapt the automotive business to the digital world in order to keep in touch and present the products to the consumers by this means. All dealers are doing their best to train their sales force in use new technologies, and we are moving in this direction. These days, having virtual meetings and contacts is the common way to interact. And to deepen the management of digital platforms will be crucial for future results. So dealers have increased investment in this kind of topics. Also, the contact and joint work with specialist consultants as Mercado Libre, Google, Facebook, Go Virtual, and others partners has been widely increased. In other terms, at present, to the dealers, the main problem is low purchasing power of the consumers. The low confidence of them, and this trust of the investors to create jobs. These factors explain our expectations to the 4 years, 3-4 years to recover the level of sales in Mexico, Thomas. It's a complex situation now. Thank you.
Okay. Guillermo, let me make a follow-up question, please. Do you think that, or do you see many car dealers really in trouble, in financial trouble, needing support from the investors or even the OEMs? Or are they more or less, or most of them, able to survive the situations on their own?
It is complex, and the situation of dealers, there are many kinds of dealers. It's at present, there are important groups of multi-brand dealers with a financing of investors and external financing to the family, to the traditional family owner of the enterprise to the dealers. This kind of dealer, I think, in the short future, to be increase the sharing in the number of points of sale in Mexico. There are other kinds of dealers, the traditional dealer, one family, only one brand in one city. This kind of dealer has, in this moment, a hard situation to continue in the business. It's very hard acquiring financing, increase the investment in the technology requirements, and in the short time, I think that the concentrate in the Mexican market increase with the multi brands, dealers, 40, 50 car dealers, and the traditional families with 1, 2 had a so hard situation to survive in this crisis, Thomas. And I think that the problem increased with the OEMs had not intention to respect to the traditional dealers. It's the Charles Darwin law.
Yeah, thank you, Guillermo. Very interesting. Now, let me motivate our audience to make questions. I have a couple of questions. We could answer some more if you would post them in the Q&A section. Let me take up one that seems very interesting to me, and it's a very clever question to ask.
You have your microphone in mute mode, Thomas.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Manuel Macias is asking us, and I think this is a very logical thing to ask. Now we have the pandemic, which is impacting sales, but sales have been coming down since 2016, and a very considerable amount. What happened between 2016 and 2019 in Mexico? That sales came down, and now in addition we have the pandemic. I think this is a very interesting question, because when I still worked in the industry, this was something that the OEMs questioned themselves. Is for starters, in 2015, when the boom began, 20% growth from one year to the other, nobody was expecting that. Nobody was prepared for that, and it lasted like 2 years to 2016, and then it came down again. But the question is, and I open the question to any one of you who wants to answer it. What happened that motivated the big growth 2015-16, and then the downward trend that started 2017? Any takers for the question? Gerardo, Claudia, Guillermo?
I can talk briefly about that. When we were in a growth market previously from 2009 to 2016, right? So we get to our highest ever, right? In 2016, 1.6 million. And just consider this part, this growth comes because the requirement or the necessity from the customers to have a vehicle. If we consider that one out of every 3 clients that are at the age of driving have a car. So the potential growth of the market is 3 times what we have now, right, in general numbers. But what happened then is that once we get all those vehicles on the street, then suddenly it becomes like a real line that, okay, let's start using it, and the infrastructure also is adding up at the moment. So it's like a pause that we take on that moment, because it was an adjustment down, slightly down. But again, consider that we are on the top 15 car sellers of the world on the market, right? So we are actually on the 14th, and that is key just to continue growing. So it's like a part of an adjustment, temporary adjustment that is going to continue growing, and more now that, as Claudia mentioned at the beginning, all the usage of public transportation because of this situation again also is going to help push again the requirement of the vehicle. And it's, of course, even though there's different behaviors on the usage of the vehicle for the younger people now on the larger cities, but also we're going to continue need to have providers to get that service. So the market is going to just ramp up in order just to fulfill the requirements of the market, of all the consumers that requires a vehicle here. So that is kind of what is happening. Is just what we see on JD Power is just an alignment to just let's see what happens, stand by a little bit. Of course, this is not considering all the macroeconomics that are happening behind, besides the auto industry.
Thank you, Gerardo. Any thoughts on this, Claudia?
Yes, as we have seen, the economy has been slow in the previous years, and as we mentioned, the car sales move closely with the economic. The vehicle industry is very sensitive to any changes, so it has been capturing in some way, affecting every decision has been affecting the industry. So we presented in one of the slides too that the unemployment has been a problem, not only in this pandemic situation, but it really began 3-4 years ago. So I think that could be something that could be behind of this drop off, besides of the things that Gerardo says about this. I don't know if it's a saturation of the market, but it maybe has to do with generational issues. And I think that just the unemployment is one of the factors that could be behind, and it's not new. Among others, of course, the exchange rate, the inflation of the cars, are other factors that could be behind all this drop off in the industry in the previous years. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you, Claudia. I think Claudia makes a very important point. Prices, car prices have been going up because they are much related to the exchange rates. And what do you think? Is that an important factor for the growth of the industry, or the reduction of sales we have seen in 2017 on?
The situation is complex, is multifactorial, and in the past, at 2016, with the record year in vehicle sales in Mexico, we have high levels of formal jobs, high competition between the financing institutions, captives, and banks. The prices of vehicles in the low levels in the history, and all these factors incite to increase of demand. And now the situation is totally different. We lost jobs in Mexico. There is a high distrust in the investors and the low confidence consumer. That incite to a low level of demand this year, 3 years ago, and the next three years. It's but the prices, it's a factor to focus in this moment and the next year. The last data to the situation of prices in the vehicles show a 7% to increase in October. The first November to the first November last year, 7%. And the general prices increase less to 4. It's a big difference between the general prices and the prices of the vehicles, and this is a factor to delimit the demand. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Guillermo. I think there is an issue there that is probably one of the main headaches for the big car manufacturers that are trying to enter this market or expand in this market. We are closing close to the timeline of our panel, but I would like to introduce 2 more questions very quickly. Maybe Gerardo or Claudia, you have an opinion on that. Is USMCA, TEMEC going to have some impact, good or bad, on car sales in Mexico, or is this an issue that is not related? Claudia.
Yeah. Yes, it has to affect in the first instance the production. The regional component has changed from the NAFTA to the USMCA. So it has changed to the wages that has to be paid on the industry. I think that it has to affect in some way the supply of cars here too. And I don't know in other way that can affect, but maybe it's more in the side of the wages that the employers have. And of course, that's a good thing for the car sales, that an increase in wages we can experience here in Mexico. Yes.
Thank you, Claudia. Gerardo, any thoughts about that?
In general, we are very, very positive in terms of what is bringing to the country in general, right? Just open it and with new rules that has to be updated, basically. But now we have all potential. Remember, we are on the top 5, top 6 producers of the world. So it's gonna become very, very more to come down to produce in Mexico to export, even though with these new conditions on that. So we think this is gonna be really, really continue being positive for Mexico as well.
Thank you, Gerardo. There is another question that's probably you can answer, Guillermo. What about used car sales? Are they equally impacted as new cars, or is there a reverse impact, like people migrating to used cars and maybe buying more used cars? Well, what is your experience?
In Mexico, we have not good data to the secondary market, the used cars market, but watching the situation of the market in the dealers and other funds, we can say to this moment, the used cars have a big opportunity to business in the formal market. Mexican, Claudia said that need and want to a car, but the economic situation is too hard to acquire a new vehicle to a great population. And this, the used car is a good opportunity to these families. We need work in offer safety, legacy, and financing to increase the used vehicle markets. The last data Claudia showed a few minutes ago showed that the financing to used vehicles decreased this year in the pandemic situation, but decreased less than the decrease the new vehicles. And all dealers in Mexico now are working to reinforce the used vehicle departments inside the dealers and using the digital strategies, Facebook, Twitter, other to reinforce this line to business. I see a big future to the used vehicles in the formal market in Mexico. Thank you, Thomas.
Here we are. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Guillermo. Now, well, we are just in time to close this first panel of the event. And maybe there's, but there is time still to give each of you maybe 1 minute of closing arguments, just trying to sum up the conclusion or your conclusion for this issue for our audience. Gerardo, you want to start?
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, basically what we are seeing is a challenging, as Claudia mentioned at the beginning, that the challenge word is in everywhere, but as we will see, it's a big opportunity in order that we have to adapt and grow with the new ways of doing business. If we don't adapt fast, and we can just, and if we don't follow what our customers and our consumers are requiring and need in order just to continue growing, that is gonna keep us behind what we can do. But the point is we have to adapt really quick to what the market requirements are now in order just to continue growing. And with that, we need just to follow all what our customers are. We talked briefly about generations and our new generation that is coming into the market, this Gen Z that we are talking about, the younger now are buying cars, start buying cars. And we are just focusing sometimes in the older ones. But the younger ones are the ones that are making the big volume there. So let's try to continue understanding who our customers are and how we can keep the demand, how we can keep their and exceed their expectations with also all the technology that are coming into our, we have to adapt to our technology. Basically, that's.
Thank you very much, Gerardo. I think this was a very positive message. Claudia, how is your vision? How is your, what is your conclusion?
Yes, well, I think that the years to come another words that we can pronounce more than challenge too is creativity and resilience, of course. We have to be very creative. The distributors, the sellers has to be very creative in the new ways to sell cars, to approach the consumer. The digital is going to be the new way and has to be more. Of course, there are factors, macroeconomic factors that has to be overcome. Of course, it's not to a battle of one industry. It needs the helps of the regulations, and the government has to see this as an important industry to help increase to make a consumer has a car, of course, is important. And I think that in the financing term too, the regulations are very important too. And that would be my opinion. It has years of creativity, and that's it.
Thank you, Claudia. Very important message there. And well, Guillermo, you have the last word. You are an important part of the value creating process in the automotive industry. What is your summary of this?
Thank you, Thomas. For the persons and for the enterprise, the first step is survive in this crisis, healthy and economic crisis. And then the challenge is to defeat the pandemic. I think that all people, all enterprise, take good care of yourselves, and let's work hard to survive and to be an opportunity in the future. Again, thank you to Mexico Now to this opportunity. Big pleasure to depart with you, Thomas, Claudia, and Gerardo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guillermo. Well, I hope we have given our audience a good overview, a useful overview of the current situation of the Mexican market. I'm happy to note that not all the news are negative, not all the opinions are of doom. There are opportunities there, and we hope seeing you again in the Mexico Now events next year. Thank you very much to my panelists, Claudia, Gerardo, Guillermo. Thank you. Thanks to the audience. I know we haven't answered specifically all your questions, but I think we touched all the important issues. So thank you for being with us, and thank to Mexico Now for organizing this. And good morning to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.